Hello, everyone. This is Professor DePaulo. Welcome you back to Psych 265 Research in Psychology fully online. And today I'm going to be talking about how to write up the discussion section of the APA manuscript. So I'm going to start with the results. And these are results that were analyzed by me, and this is part of your paper. All you have to do for the final paper is copy and paste the results into your final paper, just like I've written it right here. So you're just going to copy and paste it. You don't have to change anything, but I'm going to go through the results that we tested 5 hypotheses in our study. If we go back to the introduction, we tested 5 hypotheses, and these are the results of those 5 hypotheses being tested. Hypothesis 1 was supported as a positive correlation was found between life satisfaction. So that was found that supported hypothesis 1. Hypothesis 2 was supported as there was a negative correlation between social connectedness and anxiety, negative 0.485. There was also a negative correlation between social connectedness and depression, negative 0.517. Hypothesis 3 was also supported as there was a negative correlation between social connectedness and somatization, negative 0.482 here. Hypothesis 4 was not supported as there was not a positive correlation between social connectedness and GPA. Instead, the correlation was negative between social correlation and GPA, negative 0.454. So that was opposite of what we thought. We thought as social connectedness increased, that GPA would increase, and it looks like as social connectedness increases, GPA goes down, ironically enough. Finally, hypothesis 5 was supported as there was a negative correlation between social connectedness and stress, negative 0.522. So I've written this for you. All you do is copy and paste it into the final paper. You don't have to put this in your discussion section because it's not the discussion, it's the results. So let's go and walk you through how to write the discussion section. So we get out of here. How do I write the discussion section? So if you go into the written assignments tab of Brightspace, you'll see, if you scroll down, you'll see discussion. This is where you're going to upload the assignment. You also see the discussion, writing the discussion section instructions here. So we're going to follow these instructions, which I'm following in this video, right? Okay. So for the discussion section, I'm keeping it very simple for you. You're going to write the word discussion in regular 12-point font, Times New Roman. It's fine. Not an exotic font, right? 12 points, center it, not bold, not italic. That's the major header discussion. And below that, you're going to start paragraph 1. Remember to indent all your paragraphs. I know that's a pretty basic thing, but some people don't indent at all. Make sure you're indenting all your paragraphs. In paragraph 1, you want to restate your hypotheses. So we have 5 hypotheses. You want to state for each of those 5 hypotheses whether that hypothesis was supported or not. And out of the 5 hypotheses, 4 of them, were supported. And the one that wasn't supported was the relationship, the positive correlation between connectedness, social connectedness, and GPA. That was not supported. Please state the results in words without statistical terms. So what are your results? So in order to sort of frame that, you're going to go back to the introduction section. Let me just download this just to have later. We're going to go back to the instructions for the introduction, where we have the right here, it says writing the introduction. The 5 hypotheses were down here, and I tested them all in the results, right? So hypothesis 1, right here, positive correlation between social connectedness and life satisfaction, that was supported. Hypothesis 2, a negative correlation between social connectedness and anxiety and depression, that was supported. Hypothesis 3, with a negative correlation between social connectedness and somatization, that was supported. Hypothesis 4, with GPA and social connectedness, not supported. And hypothesis 5, social connectedness negatively correlated with stress, was supported. So 4 of those 5 were supported, and you can see that clearly in the results section, right? So hypothesis 1 was supported, 2 was supported, both in anxiety and depression, 3 was supported, 4 was not supported, and 5 was supported. So 4 out of 5 were supported, this is a really good result. Considering the sample size is relatively small, this is a really promising and pretty strong results. I mean, these are not small correlations. 0.455 is a pretty good correlation for psychology research. It's not like it's zero point 0.1. It's a pretty strong correlation. You're not expecting zero point 0.7, zero point 0.8, zero point 0.9. I mean, you don't see those correlations in psychological research. 0.455 is a pretty decent correlation. And most of these are in the 0.4s or 0.5 here, which is, like I said, it's a pretty decent result to get, especially with a small sample. It's a pretty big effect size going on. So let's go back to this is the introduction. Let's go back to the discussion. Instructions. Right down here, discussion again. So in this first paragraph, you're just going to write the 5 hypotheses and whether each of these hypotheses was supported. You're not going to write why. You're just basically giving the information, was it supported or not supported? That's it. So you're just reframing or restating those 5 hypotheses. So I expect to see those 5 hypotheses with the words hypothesis 1 was supported, this was not supported, right? That's all you're doing for paragraph 1. Paragraph 2, how do your findings relate to past research, especially that discussing the introduction? So you got to go back to previous studies, and here you have to cite. So go back to your previous studies. You should have some of this stuff in your introduction already, the literature review. Go back to that previous research. Like, for example, hypothesis 1 is a positive correlation between social connectedness and in the first one, it was social connectedness and life satisfaction. Go look at the previous research. Does the previous research is that previous research supported by the class findings? These are the class findings, right? You know, as a class, we found a correlation, positive correlation here. Does that is that, what the previous research find? So go back and state the previous research findings. Were our results similar to previous research? So you should have 5 different studies here again, one related to each of the 5 hypotheses in paragraph 2. You should be citing 5 different studies, author, comma, year. The paraphrase on citing. You cite in APA style, author, comma, year in parentheses. If you don't have 5 research studies for these 5 hypotheses, then you have to go back and find them. And you need to cite in paragraph 2. Do our results as a class support hypothesis 1, the previous research on hypothesis 1, which is a positive correlation between life satisfaction and social connectedness? You're going to tell me that. Then for hypothesis 2, the same thing. Hypothesis 3, 4, and 5. It's all you're doing in paragraph 2. Did we get as a class similar results or different results from the previous research? And you must cite those 5 articles, one for each of the 5 hypotheses. Paragraph 3, this is important. If you fail to support your hypothesis, explain why. So we didn't support GPA, the positive correlation between GPA and social connectedness. We didn't support that hypothesis. Why not? Give me a reason why we didn't support it. Why did we find the opposite? What could be a possible reason? And after that, then talk about the limitations of the study. What were the limitations? Smaller sample, not a diverse sample. Think about the sample. The sample is pretty young, mostly college age students. So the vast majority of the sample was between 18 and 22, 23. Now, that's not representative of the entire population that we're trying to study. That's a very small, very narrow age range. And also, the sample is from New York City predominantly, right? I mean, the MCC students are overwhelmingly from New York City. So these results can generalize to New York City youth. Well, do they generalize to the entire country? I don't know. Our sample is it from New York. That might be different than if I went and got a sample from Kansas. In terms of cultural, in terms of lifestyle, in terms of ethnicity, right? These are different samples. If I do a study in New York City and I get my students from BMCC, that's going to be a lot different than if I did a study from the Boston suburb area where you don't have the diversity, ethnic diversity that you have in New York City. So those are all possible limitations. Small sample, not a diverse sample with regard to age, gender. The sample is overwhelmingly female, right? Age, young sample from New York City. Lots of limitations. Survey methodology. There are issues with surveys, right? People aren't always 100% honest with surveys. We call this social desirability. They want to give answers that make them look good rather than always accurate answers. So there's always these issues. And then talk about internal, external validity. Internal validity is the ability to draw cause and effect conclusions based on the data. So since we're doing a survey, it's correlational research, and therefore we cannot draw cause and effect conclusions based on the survey data. So there's low internal validity. And external validity is the ability to generalize from the sample to the population. That's also limited because the sample, as I said before, it's pretty limited. It's a smaller sample. It's mostly between 18 and 23. It's from New York City. It's mostly female, overwhelmingly female. And so does that generalize to the population of college students that we're interested in studying? And the answer is, I don't know. We'd have to do multiple studies with different samples and see if we get similar results. So that's a problem with external validity. We may not be able to generalize our specific sample to the general population of college students. That's a problem. I mean, look, it's a normal problem to have. Like most researchers use the sample that they have available. They use a convenience sample. They're not using a random sample because it's too hard and too time consuming and too expensive to do that. So there's always these issues with possible external validity, not being able to generalize from a sample to a population. And that requires replication, and a lot of people don't replicate. So that's one of the pitfalls of psychological research. And finally, in paragraph 4, what are the real world implications of the study? And how would you address the limitations? I mean, there are a lot of real world implications. The real world implication is social connectedness, being in touch with people, being around people, feeling connected to people on many levels is important for health, both physically, psychologically. Maybe it's not as important for academic achievement. We don't see that in our class study here, but it's important for a lot of other things. You're happier when you're connected. You have less anxiety and depression when you're connected to others. You have less stress. So there's a lot of benefits from being connected. And why is this important? Because we weren't connected during the pandemic. So the pandemic was just a big curveball that we couldn't really handle well. And we were all at home and not meeting up. And the electronic communication, over FaceTime or, whatever you're using to communicate online, Zoom, etc., is not the same as being in person connected to people. So there's a lot of real world implications because of the pandemic and the damage that was done. We don't know how much damage was done to the youth, American youth when we were locked down. Kids were not in school for a couple of years. Now, when kids are young, they need this important interactions with their peers and with their, teachers for development. And students missed a couple of years of this very impactful connection or connections. And we don't know the long-term outcome. It's probably not positive though. Does that take place as, or does that manifest as more mental health issues? It's too early to tell, but I would say it's probably going to go in that direction. More mental health issues among today's youth because of the pandemic and the isolation. So we'll know. We're starting to know now, but we'll know a little bit more as this cohort that was locked down, uh, becomes older and older. We can follow up in a long term risk of psychopathology or maybe lowered success. That uh, more trouble dealing with certain problems as they get older. We don't know yet, but it's not a positive thing. So there are a lot of problems. And how would you address these limitations? Well, bigger sample or diverse sample, right? Sample from different areas. Maybe asking people about, the amount of lockdown they had during the pandemic. Some students may have been locked down more than others. There's a lot of ways to address it. I mean, it's a very flawed study. It's just a survey. So there's a lot of things that we can do to improve it. And it's just kind of a baseline way to get some data on how people feel connected post pandemic. And I think it's important. It's important research because we never had this kind of disruption in our social lives and our social connections that we had since the COVID. And that's it. 4 paragraphs, 4 solid paragraphs. That's all I'm looking for. Follow the directions, 4 solid paragraphs. Make sure you contact me if you have any questions. I'm available through email. I'm available on my office hours. So let me know if there's any issues with this. And I look forward to reading it. And when you're done, you're just going to upload it. So under writing assignments, you're going to save it as a PDF and you're going to upload it here where it says discussion. And I look forward to reading it and give you some feedback and helping you get to learn to write a manuscript. And you're doing the same thing that happens when I submit a paper. When I submit a paper, it goes under review. And now that you're submitting a paper, it's going under review. I'm reviewing it. But when I submit my papers, I have like 2 or 3 reviewers. And they're not as nice as I am to you. I mean, they can be really brutal. Now, of course, they're holding me to a higher standard, but reviews are tough. There's always problems in the reviews. So all of the feedback I give you is constructive. Nothing is critical. Nothing is personal. Nothing, I want to help you become a better writer. I want to help you learn how to write scientifically. Nothing is critical at all. So please don't take feedback or where I say you need to fix this, fix that. These are just constructive criticism. This is good feedback. Now, if you don't follow the directions, I give you the feedback of what are you doing, basically. You need to follow the directions. It's very important. So if you have any questions, reach out to me. If you need to meet with me, I am available. So hopefully that helps you write the assignment. Goodbye for now, and I'll see you online with the next video, which is on the title, the abstract, and the references. So bye for now.